Hello, and welcome to this series of videos about using the powerful tools built into word processors in order to format a long document. In this particular set of videos, I'm going to be particularly talking about academic documents. So this is targeted at people trying to write a master's or a PhD thesis. But the topics we'll look at in these videos and the tools that I'm going to show you will be useful to anybody who has a long report or any other kind of significantly lengthy document that they're finding unwieldy, they're struggling to get the formatting looking nice. You really don't want to spend those late nights going, oh my goodness, I want to change the font I'm using, or I want to change the space between my paragraphs, and plowing through a 100-page document, page by page, fixing things. So that's really what I want to show you here in these videos that follow. We'll break it down into short little nuggets. I'm going to be talking you through the powerful tools built into most standard word processors. I'll be using Microsoft Word on a Windows platform, but Mac Office will do the same, and so will OpenOffice. To avoid that kind of horrible, mundane error fixing at the end of your document when you're trying to make it look nice. Okay, here we go. First thing just to notice on your screen is the layout of what you're presented with when you open a brand new document in Microsoft Word. You have a series of menus across the top, and we're going to be using most of them. We're going to unpick them video by video, showing you what all the buttons do. I have a few other little things showing on my screen. You can see that I've got a ruler across the top here, which is going to give me a sense of where my margins are, where my indents are, hanging indents. If I have any tab stops, we'll talk about that later when we talk about paragraph formatting. And sort of how wide the margins are at the end of my page, which at this point is set to a standard default of A4, but we'll also see how you can change that too. At the bottom, we've got a few other little things happening here. I don't like text predictions, so they are turned off. I have my language settings set to English, the South African version, because that is me. I am from South Africa. The number of pages and which one I'm on, the number of words in my document. And then also on this side, a zoom setting. So how zoomed in or zoomed out am I? And I can grab the slider as well. These things you probably know. Let's put it back to 100%, which is the default. And then the kinds of views that I can have. So you can have something called a web layout, print layout, or a read mode. And this will depend on showing how the text you put on your document looks on the screen. For example, I like print layout because in computer science terms, what we call WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. So I like this format because it gives me a sense of where the characters and the letters are going to actually fall on the page if I print it. But you'll see if I click here on read mode, it's basically going to try and maximize my screen space to make it more into a sort of a tablet-like experience. And if I click on web layout, then it's going to give me a full width, edge of screen to edge of screen, but with all my menus. That's going to show it what it looks like as if this was text in a web browser on a website. Okay, for the purposes of academic documents, we're going to stick with print layout for now. There are other few different things on the screen that you can see. You can see my name up here. I'm Sarah Black. I am a lecturer at King's College London in the UK, and I'm making these videos because a lot of my students don't seem to know how to format their dissertations and their essays, and it makes it difficult for them, but it also makes it difficult for me as a person reading their documents. So this is not an entirely unselfish video, but I hope that everybody will find what we're doing useful. And then there are other few settings here about sort of are there comments, which we'll look at when we examine the review menu. What mode am I in? Am I editing? Am I reviewing? Or have I locked the document so that I don't make any changes? So it's sort of read-only mode. And then there are other aspects, for example, sharing the document, and that will plug into other features like Microsoft's OneDrive or SharePoint. So that's sort of a articulation compatibility with other types of software. We're not going to worry about that too much today. All right, before we finish this first quick video, I just want to show you briefly what we are going to cover in the next few videos by exploring the menu options across the top of my screen here. So when I open a new document, I land on Home, and you'll see that I have what we call in graphic design, this is called a ribbon. It is a strip of controls. Now, ribbons can go across the top of the screen, they can go down the side. It depends on how you like to work, how big your screen is. I'm working on a quite small screen laptop right now, and I like my ribbon across the top. And across it, you'll see there are different sections with what we call dividers. So there is a clipboard section, font, paragraph, styles, which are going to be really important throughout all of these videos, editing, voice, and then a little button here which says, okay, you know, how would you like this ribbon to present? Full screen mode, and it gives me a little bit more space. And then I click back on those double dots there and I go, okay, thank you. Actually, I always want you to show my ribbon. Depends on how much screen space and what the real estate is that you're working with. You say show tabs only, in which case the ribbon gets folded away, but I can see the little hooks or tabs that open each ribbon up, and it will open while I'm over it, but as soon as I click away from it, it disappears again. I like having my ribbon in front of me all the time, but that's just how I like to work. So each of these tabs has a ribbon attached, and each ribbon has subdivisions. We're going to explore each subdivision as we go, video by video. But what I do want to make you notice is that each subdivision has a little corner arrow on the bottom right. And what that corner arrow does is it opens up more options for you in the form of what we call a dialogue. This little gray square that's opened up on top of my document is called a dialogue, and it gives me more detailed controls than what would fit on just the partition on a ribbon. So this is a font dialogue. It gives me all sorts of things like how my text would look, and it gives me some schmancy things like ligatures or some things like we call kerning for fonts. We'll explore all this later, don't worry. Rather, I just want you to get a sense of the landscape on your screen. Tabs with ribbons, ribbons with subsections, and subsections with more details. That's the case for almost all of these tabs. Most of these do not have more details. You can see there's that little corner missing, but we will look at pages, tables, pictures, etc. This one has some freehand stuff, which is normally not something we would particularly use. Design, it is Microsoft giving you some preset fancy things that you might find appealing as a sort of shortcut to a particular look and feel. But what we will explore as we continue through these videos is the building blocks from which these designs have been made. So rather than using presets and not understanding the ideas and the tools used to make those presets, I'm going to actually show you the basic building blocks, and you can make your own design, even if you take one of these and then start to tweak it for the look and feel you want. Layout. Here you can see we're getting more options again on some of these subdivisions. Really important. This is where we do things like sections, where we turn our pages sideways or make our margins smaller. Perhaps we want to put some columns in. So that will be quite an important menu we'll explore. References, and this is going to take a while to load. Oh no, it's behaving itself. Thank you, references. This includes some inbuilt features with the software, and also if you install, as a lot of us academics do, some kind of external citation software that bootstraps onto your word processing software, you might find that it's added its own menus on here too. So table of contents, how to generate one of those, make it look good. Footnotes. This is a external piece of software, Mendeley, which is quite a popular citation engine used by academics, but Word provides its own in-house ones as well, allows you to choose different citation styles. Captions and tables of figures, so those little explainer lines that sit under your tables and your pictures saying this is figure 1. That's going to all come from this particular tab. Mailings, not something academics tend to use a lot, although if you are a research assistant, mail merge is very useful. We're not going to do this one, but there are lots of very nice videos on YouTube if you want to learn how to use mail merge in order to create a template letter and then populate it with data from an Excel spreadsheet so that your letter has the correct salutation, name, email address, address details of its recipient, and you can make 200 letters that look identical but have the right details on each one. That's what mail merge can do for you. I'm not going to cover that in this set of videos, but look it up on YouTube. Lots of nice things there. Review, as a lecturer and supervisor, one of my favorites. This is where you do things like track changes, which includes making markup, showing where things have been altered and by whom, deletions, insertions, formatting changes, as well as adding comments or deleting them or navigating through them, as well as what the students use, which is to accept or reject all the scribblings that I put all over their documents to tell them what they need to change. Finally, view. This is quite useful. Particularly, you can turn on and off things like, do you see your ruler? I like to see my ruler. The navigation pane will become very important when I show you how styles generate heading structures in your document. We will look at how you can change the scrolling. You can also, your zoom controls that are at the bottom here, also replicated on this ribbon. And then I find that there are useful things like if you're comparing documents side by side, or you want to look at the same document but at 2 different places at once, some of these window commands can be quite useful. We're not going to look at SharePoint or macros in these videos. Don't worry about Foxit PDF. That is something I have installed because I like to use Foxit as my PDF reader. And this is just an external software bootstrapping some options into my word processor. Finally, file. Most of you will know this one. This will show you recent documents, when you last accessed them, opening a new document, maybe using some of the templates, info about your document, which includes protecting it, looking at its properties, who is the author, total editing time, how many pages, etc. This is the sort of place where you go also to, if you protect a document, to make a document anonymous. So, for example, when academics submit documents that are anonymized for blind peer review, stripping out some of these properties is quite important so that no one can go and see who wrote this document. Inadvertently, there is all these properties set in the background that people forget about. It's what we call metadata attached to the document. And it's one thing to strip all the names out of the actual text, but you actually have to strip the metadata off it as well. And then most of these you will be familiar with: closing a document, save as, print, etc. That's it for this first video. In the next one, I'm going to start introducing you to some of these formatting settings. And then in a video later, we're going to enter the heady, wonderful world of styles.